Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Canik Mete SFT. But if you're interested in finding the best prices on a wide variety of gear, then you should probably be checking out gun.deals. Now, gun.deals is just a website that compiles some of the best deals online. So, if you're interested in finding cool stuff at the best possible price, go ahead and check them out. They don't buy or sell anything. They don't take your money. They only point you in the right direction. So, with all of that out of the way, of course, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe while you're here. And go ahead and comment literally anything down below about this peanut butter chocolate looking guy. Now, full disclosure on the Canik Mete SFT is that we have absolutely no relationship with Canik. We bought this with our own money. We paid full retail price at our local gun store to pick this up. So I have absolutely no reason to say one thing good or bad about it. However, I'm going to be extremely positive about this handgun. Now, some context about me personally. I'm a Glock guy. I like Glock handguns. This is the gun that I carry almost every single day. This is a Glock 17 Gen 3 that has had just a few modifications done to it. This is an exceptional gun. Incredibly reliable, very, very good to shoot. But this is much better. It just really is that much better to shoot right out of the box. I was incredibly impressed with its shooting performance. I can't talk about its long-term durability like you can with a Glock, and of course it does not have that track record, but in terms of its shooting performance, I was very, very impressed. So, let's go ahead and get into some of the basic specifics. It does come with two magazines. This one here, the Extendo magazine, which is a 20-round magazine, and then a flush fit 18-round magazine. Now, with that extended size standard capacity magazine, you're going to be getting a lot longer of a grip. So while it is basically Glock 17 size, it is a little bit bigger in each direction. It's a little bit taller. It's about the same length. It's a little bit wider. So it's not necessarily a crazy long gun like a 5-inch gun, because the SFT is the 4.47-inch version and the SFX is the long slide 5.2-inch version. So, of course, with this, you do of course have a 4.47-inch 9mm barrel, which is going to be giving you pretty decent ballistics for 9mm. This is definitely a full-size duty carry competition gun, whatever you want to call it. So let's go ahead and start with the slide and work our way down. So the slide itself is machined out of a singular piece of billet steel. I'm not sure of the exact material makeup, whether that's 4140 or some sort of stainless variety of steel. However, the machining quality on it is very good. There are no rough edges on it whatsoever. Everything is very nicely dehorned. We do have forward and rear slide serrations that are very easy to grab onto, and so you can do all of your cool press checks and whatnot very easily. We have a nice kind of scalloped out front part as well for indexing in and out of holsters, which we will talk about holster compatibility with this gun. And overall, the slide design is, as you can probably tell, it's a little bit tall, so it does have a slightly, even if I get my hand up there as high as I can, it is a little bit taller than what you're going to be getting out of a Glock. And so I did notice in recoil a little bit more flip, although it is a very, very soft shooting gun. Now, again, talking about the barrel, it is a decent profile. It is their 4.47-inch match barrel is what they call it. And I was able to very, very easily take shots out to 120 yards, no issues. Now, the sights that come standard on it are a very simple 3-dot sighting system. It's fairly standard for the industry. They're decent enough, and out of the box, they're going to work just fine. If you're an iron sights only guy, then you might want to swap those out. I'm not sure what sights they're compatible with, but I'm sure there's something on the market that you could swap those guys out to if you wanted to upgrade your iron sights. Now, that being said, the iron sights on the Canik SFT are actually designed to co-witness with their very, very low optics cut. Now, the optics cut itself is cut for, I believe, Doctor and the Shield RMS footprint, which is the smaller footprint, and it does, of course, fit like the RMRcc and smaller micro style, so the 407K, the 507K, Those will all fit direct mounted to the slide itself and co-witness very nicely with the built-in iron sights, of course. Now, as you might notice, I have a full-size 507C that I've kind of finagled onto it. So forward and backwards, the slide cut is actually perfect for a 507C. However, of course, when you put in one screw, the other screw is way too far off. So I only have one screw holding this on, but I just had this red dot laying around and I wanted to mount it up. And because the forward and back fit is so tight, I wasn't really worried about it flipping off or not, because that screw is really only holding it down to the slide itself. It's not protecting it from moving forward back, just because, of course, it fits really, really tight in the slide itself. So the machining and the fitment there is quite good. And of course, the advantage of that is that you get a built-in co-witness with your iron sights. So if you are a red dot shooter and your red dot goes dead, it breaks, it cracks, something like that, you still have your iron sights right there in the bottom of your window, not obstructing anything, just sitting nicely in the bottom of your window as backups in case something does go wrong with your red dot. So overall, I would have liked to see a cut for the larger style of optics, because this is a bigger, more duty or competition sized pistol for sure. So I would have liked to see a standard RMR, not the RMRcc footprint. Just that way there, so I could mount my bigger, nicer, easier to use like competition or just more large windowed optics onto the slide itself. Now, I'm sure that there will be adapter plates coming out for the full size, but that is of course going to raise the optic up just a little bit. But the way I have it on right now is fine for plinking, although I would not use this sort of setup for duty. I would get a 507K or a 407K and direct mount it to the slide, of course. Now, a couple other nice features about the slide itself. In the back, we actually have a sear indicator that is red, so we are of course clear. And so when I have this either in a holster, if it's an open like carry holster, I can look down and see that sear indicator is red. So it is of course ready to go. That sear is in position, and then of course when you pull that trigger, it very nicely goes inside of the slide, so you don't see it anymore. It's just a nice visual indicator on whether or not that sear is primed to go. Now, internally, this is going to look very, very similar to just about every other polymer framed striker fired handgun on the market, because there's really only so much you can do with it. You do, of course, here have your 4.47 inch barrel, which the machining on it, again, is done quite well. It's not quite a bull barrel, but it is definitely a little bit of a heavier profile. You do have your captured recoil spring, which does have some pretty good weight to it, actually. I'm not sure if it's a solid stainless recoil ring. And one thing to note about that recoil spring is that it is a very strong, very tough recoil spring. And of course, if you read in the manual, it will tell you that this is rated for 124 and 115 grain NATO loads, and that it's not recommended to run lighter, lower pressure like American training loads, which is a lot of what we're getting. Bulk 9mm, bulk 115, 124 really isn't hot enough to meet the NATO spec, and most of it is, again, just kind of training ammunition. That being said, with this handgun, I did run 124 grain Norma perfectly through it, no issues whatsoever. And then I also ran 115 grain Tula as well, and I was kind of expecting it to choke on that weaker, crappier steel-cased ammunition, but it actually fed all of that flawless as well. Now, if we take this back off again for a second, the frame itself is also fairly standard. You can kind of see, if you've seen a lot of Glocks or other polymer framed handguns, everything is going to look pretty familiar to you. One thing I will say is you do of course have steel rails kind of bedded into the frame. They're fairly small, but again, so are Glocks, so it's not really a dig on them in any way, shape, or form. Now, getting down to the frame itself, this is again another part that was done quite well. We do of course have a almost full length dust cover on it, which of course also allows us to attach a light. In this case, we have a LAPG WXL slide rail, which is basically just a TLR1 HL clone. We also have a little bit of these kind of gas pedal knurling, or not knurling, the stippling just up here where you're going to put your thumb down, which is quite nice. It's a nice feature to see on a handgun, that they actually put a little bit of that stippling material there for you to put your thumb into and really push down and get a little bit of extra grip. That's a nice touch that I like to see. On top of that, moving back to the actual grip itself, we have very nice, very aggressive texturing on the front and the sides. And that front texturing is so aggressive that during recoil control, which I do like to grip quite hard, you can actually see some of my dead skin and a little bit of blood in the front textured section. In my opinion, on a competition or duty style of gun where I'm not necessarily concealed carrying this next to my body, more aggressive grip is more better for me. So on the back strap, I have the slightly larger back strap installed. The texturing on the back strap could definitely be better. It's not terrible. It kind of has this little diamond pattern. However, there's not many of them. I honestly would have preferred the same sort of texture that they have on the sides and the front all over the back. That would help me out personally, but it's a very slight miss. And again, it is interchangeable, so you do have another back strap that's a little bit slimmer depending on your hands. This fit my hands really well out of the box, and so for me, there was not any need to change it. Now, as you can also tell, it comes with a removable mag well. This is an aluminum mag well that works extremely well. Mag changes in this gun are extremely smooth, extremely fluid. You can basically aim it anywhere near and it is just going to slide right in there. One thing that I will say is you need to be very deliberate when inserting the flush fit magazine, because the flush fit magazine actually kind of gets hidden completely in the mag well. But of course, the extended 20-round magazine fits perfectly. And again, mag changes on this are incredibly fast, incredibly easy, and it's a feature I would never take it off. Now, it should also be noted that the magazine well itself on the actual frame is also flared, but then of course you have this external, much larger flare on there as well, which if you have bigger hands is also going to kind of help you to keep your hands locked in place on the gun itself. So already the frame is in a very ergonomic place. Now, we're not quite done yet because we do of course have a double undercut trigger guard, which means that you can get that hand as high up on the gun as possible. Again, we are dealing with a little bit higher bore axis on the Canik than like a Glock. Not that big of a deal when it comes to actually shooting this gun, which again, we will talk about more. And of course, the trigger guard itself is also that second double undercut, which allows you just to get your hands as high as possible and grip as good as you can on the gun. So the frame itself, I think they knocked it out of the park. The only thing that I'm going to knock them on at all is that the back strap could have a little bit more aggressive texture. Everything else on it, the beveling, the way that the beaver tail back here fits to my hands is very, very good. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the controls. So the magazine release for me is just a little further and a little smaller than I would like for like a competition gun, but for a duty-oriented gun, I think it's perfect. I don't have to break my grip, but to get a better, more consistent leverage on the magazine release, I do break my grip just a little bit. The slide release or slide stop is ambidextrous and quite low profile. It is easy to use. You can get it down very, very quickly, very easily, and of course lock it back if you so desire. And you can do it with either side. So if you're a lefty, it's going to be easier than having to do that weird thing where you put your other finger on the other side and drop it down. And then right in front of the slide stop slide release is of course our takedown lever, which is of course incredibly easy to do. So with all of that out of the way, now let's go ahead and talk about perhaps the best thing about this handgun, and that is what is, in my experience, the best striker fired trigger on the market. Now, with that statement, I do need to qualify that. I do not have as much experience with striker fired triggers as other people do. My experience is very limited to Glocks, aftermarket Glock triggers, and of course like a CZP-10 and a few other triggers, but mostly Glocks. So some of the top tier like the Walthers or some other extremely high quality like the P365 Legions and so on, those triggers might be better, but what is, again, in my experience, the best striker fired trigger. So if you're used to Glocks or any striker fired trigger, this is going to be no different. We have a lot of really soft take-up, maybe like 2 pounds, this initial take-up, and then you hit a fairly nice wall. It's a little rolling break. You just build pressure, and maybe 4 pounds, maybe 4.5 pounds. It is very, very light. Again, it's not perfectly crisp like a 1911. There's a little bit of a rolling break and almost no over travel, but the reset on top of that is short and forced. It pushes your finger forward. A lot of the times when you get a Glock aftermarket trigger, sure, you have a very nice, light, crisp pull, but then the reset kind of turns to garbage. One of the best things about a Glock, or a Glock trigger I should say, is the reset, which allows you, even though they're a little bit heavier, a little crunchy, a little bit longer rolling break, with that short, quick reset, you're still able to fire fairly quickly. This gun not only has a much better trigger pull, you still have that, you know, large amount of trigger pull, large amount of take up, but you have a light, fairly crisp wall, and you have a better, more positive reset than a stock Glock trigger. So what that means for me is that when I'm dealing with a very, very long range target, say 100 yards or so, with that light trigger weight, I can take my time, I can prep. I know there's a little rolling break and just break it exactly when I want to. And then I have a really good reset, really short reset, if I want to be shooting quickly up close. I don't know how that first shot hit. I didn't even think I had the red dot on the target when I pulled the trigger, but it did, so. Well, this might be a little bit too light for like concealed carry, because maybe I would not want to be popping off a round quite that easily, or several rounds quite that easily. For duty, or especially for like competition, I think that the trigger is phenomenal. I would not do anything to this trigger whatsoever. So now I've spent the last 20 minutes or so talking about how much I like this pistol. Surely there is some things that I don't like about it. Well, now let's go ahead and talk about shooting performance, because as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, out of the box, this gun shoots nearly as nice, if not nicer, than my comped Glock 17. And I have shot this a lot. This gun I have 15,000 rounds on at this point. It has gone through a lot of different changes. Currently it does not have its comp on it because I'm using it with the Safariland holster, which doesn't accept the comp, but even this one with a comp shoots maybe as well as the SFT out of the box. This was the first few rounds that I put through it. I was incredibly surprised. I thought it was going to be a little bit more flippy, but basically kind of like a stock Glock with a little bit higher of a bore axis. It might have something to do with the very strong recoil spring, which is why they kind of recommend, of course, higher power ammunition to actually get the thing to run. But it shot incredibly softly. Very, very nice. And not only do I think that this is a very soft, very easy gun to control, but my wife, who barely shoots at all and is only 5'1" and 100-something pounds, was able to take this and within the first couple rounds be able to make shots repeatedly at extended distances for what most people would be shooting at. So, there it is. This is a very, very nice shooting handgun. Very nice. The best handgun that I have shot out of the box. Now again, my handgun experience is limited to mostly Glock, so I'm sure that there are better guns or better shooting guns on the market in a performance standpoint, but again, and we got to take into account that this gun only costs $500. I think the MSRP on the SFT is $520, and the SFX is like $570, the longer full-size version, or the extended version, I should say. But I think I paid $490 for this out the door at my local gun store, and I'm sure on sale these will go down to like $450 or something like that. You cannot beat the amount of value and performance that you get with this handgun for the money. It is very, very good. If you are thinking about getting a Canik Mete, especially the SFT version or the SFX, though again I don't have any experience with the SFX specifically, if you're interested in getting an SFT for the price, I would absolutely go for it. Now there's one thing that I am going to knock it on, and that is going to be its long-term durability. I have no idea how this will perform over the next 10,000 rounds. I know that initially over the first few hundred rounds it has performed flawlessly with both 124 grain Norma and again 115 grain Tula. I think we did about 200 rounds of the Norma and about 100 rounds of the Tula, and it cycled both flawlessly. No issues whatsoever, no cleaning or anything like that, of course. But I know that my Glock is drop dead reliable. So Still, even though I know that this is the better shooter of the two and performs better in almost every way than a Glock 17, even better than this heavily modified Glock 17, I know that this Glock 17 is going to be reliable for the next X amount of thousand rounds. I don't know about the SFT. Now, in a duty perspective, that is of course very important for the Glock. In a home defense, concealed carry, which I do concealed carry this gun, and this gun's a little bit bigger, though it still probably could be doable. The Glock 17 I have a lot more trust in, not only because this one specifically, again, I put about 15,000 rounds through, but because Glock as a whole is just incredibly well regarded for their exceptional reliability. Now, talking about concealed carry for a second, this is a Glock 17 holster from We the People Holsters, which is a very average, very okay holster, but it does fit the SFT just fine. I mean, it has a fairly tight, retentive fit, just about as good as the one on my Glock 17, and it's not super great at protecting the trigger guard on the SFT, but it does work. And so in a pinch, of course, you can make this work. If you have a bunch of Glock parts or Glock holsters laying around, this will fit in some of them. And the holster that I was using for the intro was the Blackhawk L2D, which is like the duty Blackhawk holster, and this fit okay in there. It was a little wobbly, so I wouldn't actually use that in a duty sense, of course, if something was serious was going on. But in like a competition or something like that, it still has active retention, so it's still going to hold the gun in, just not as securely. So with all that being said, I would say actually the one knock that I actually have currently against this gun is that it's not cut for the larger style of red dots, but that's honestly about it. So with all that out of the way, guys, this is a great shooting handgun. I am very excited to continue to shoot it more and more, so I'm going to have to get a bunch of stuff on this gun so we can test out other optics and stuff as an excuse for me to shoot this more. But on top of that, let me know what you guys want to see compared against the SFT. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same price category. It can be a little bit more expensive or probably not cheaper, because I definitely don't think you can go cheaper and get something even close to what you're getting with the Mete SFT. But let me know what you guys want to see compared against the SFT, and maybe next month or so we will get a comparison video out of a couple, more performance styled handguns. So with all of that out of the way, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think of the SFT down below, and I will see you in the next one. Peace off.